In this episode, I am joined by Alessandro Chesser. He helped build Carta from 0 to 300 million ARR as their first sales hire before walking away to start Dynasty. They make billionaire-level wealth tools accessible to everyone. In this episode, we dig into the playbook behind Carta's early sales engine, the contrarian pivot to B2C, the growth loops powering Dynasty, and why Alessandro believes most Americans are getting screwed by the current wealth system. If you're a founder or a GTM operator, this one's packed with battle-tested lessons, failures, and play-by-play stories. Hey, hi Alessandro. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we'll get to Dynasty, but before that, you were the number one hire at Carta. Can you take us back? What was it like?
Yeah, it was very different when I joined. It was pre-Series A. There was a lot of uncertainty. Henry was trying to fundraise for the Series A, and I think right when I met him was around the time that he was getting lots of rejections. I think he went 0 for 20, 20 different times he tried to pitch investors and everyone said no. And so there was a lot of uncertainty, but and I didn't catch on to the mission right away. It took me a little bit of time, but when I first talked to him, he set up this whiteboard presentation and he kind of diagrammed the public market ecosystem, the public stock market with the stock exchanges and with the transfer agents and the brokerages and the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, which is a central registrar for public shares. All this infrastructure in the public stock market makes it possible for you to log into Robinhood and buy shares of Apple. And then he, on the other side of the diagram, he had the private markets, and it was spreadsheets and law firm, paper stock certificates. And he's like, we're going to build all this infrastructure. We're going to vertically integrate market infrastructure from the ground up. We're going to start with the central registrar, which is the cap table. And we're going to build the brokerage. We're going to build the exchange. We're going to build the transfer agent. And we're going to be a one-stop shop for everything related to the private markets. And it's a big, grand vision. And so it took me a while to kind of grasp it, but I remember very clearly. And he was barefoot when he was presenting it to me. He was, doing his whiteboard, and I was like, this guy's crazy. But I went home and I thought about it. And, in the interview, I actually debated with him a lot. And I was like, that's not going to work. It's different. It's a whole different market. The law firms, hold everything hostage. It has to be paper. And I went home and I really thought about it. And, the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? Henry's right. This should be completely reimagined. And so I sent him an email and I said, Henry, I know I debated with you in the interview, but I'm a believer. I agree. You're right. I want to do this. I want to help you. And so when I joined, I remember day one, he gave me access to the platform and I logged in and there was nothing there. And it was like a shell application. I was like, Henry, you sold me this there's nothing here. I'm like, how are we going to sell this? And he's like, that's your job. He said, you go out and sell the dream and then our engineers will build it. He said, you sell, we build. You sell, we build. He said, if you can't sell, then we're not going to build. And he's like, that's how we're going to find product market fit. And that's what we did. Over the course of 8 years, every time, me and him talked, it was always about selling the future, selling the dream of the platform, getting people excited about it, and getting customers to commit to product that we had not yet built yet.
Right.
And that, laid the foundation for me to start my own company later. Sell what doesn't exist and become very good at that. That's the best way to find product market fit. The other way to try to find product market fit is to build first and then try to sell. Yeah. But what if you build the wrong thing? The only way to know if you're building the right thing or not is if people are buying it before you've built it. And so that's the order that we took, and that's how we found product market fit.
What was your approach to sell without building, and to someone who's starting out, who's not done this before? What would you recommend? What were some of the key lessons or hacks to sell without building?
Yeah, I would say that, first you have to, this comes directly from the Mark Benioff School of Sales, the CEO and founder of Salesforce, Mark Benioff. He talks about this a lot. When he sells Salesforce, he doesn't sell the way that the product exists today. He sells the dream for the future, the world that he's trying to create. Because if you can get people excited about what you're building, they have an emotional commitment to wanting to work with you. And so that it's really just selling it's not we're going to have all this functionality. It's we're going to build a stock exchange for private companies. We're going to make it possible for you to allow your employees to sell their stock, to allow regular retail investors to buy your stock. Like, we're going to make the private markets liquid and make it easier for you to never have to go public if you don't want to. It's like, we're going to make it so that you can push a button and allow your employees to sell stock. You can push a button and raise capital. You can push a button and recalibrate your entire cap table. And so that was the vision. The vision was that we were going to make this infrastructure, allow you to operate as if you were almost a public company, but still being private. And that got people excited. That got CFOs excited. That got CEOs excited. Just selling that vision. And I think that's the most important thing. You have to be able to get people excited about what you're doing, because if you have to also focus on the problems that you're solving at the same time. But it's a little bit more than just that. You get people excited about it, and then they want to like see something. And so you need to be really good at building like quick prototypes. You don't have to build actual working software. We have to be able to show them what it's going to look like, what they're going to get, how quickly you're going to onboard them. You have to prove to them that you're going to be able to deliver. And so it's really a collaborated, it's a collaborative process between the person who's selling, who at the early stages, it's usually the founder or it's the first sales hire, the designers and the engineers. And for me, it was just our engineer, our very first hire at the company. It was me and him working together to figure out what we could possibly sell that we could also deliver like very quickly. That was the idea. Is like, we don't want to overcommit. We want to sell the future, but when it comes to like what they're actually going to get today, we want to be able to sell them on what we think we can deliver before they're actually onboarded onto the platform. Onboarding takes, 30 to 60 days. It's like, what can we actually deliver in that time? And so you have to be really tight, between the business side and the R&D side. Have to be in really tight communication and have to be on the exact same page of like what you're selling and what can actually be delivered.
You sell the vision, but what they get is obviously not the full vision. How do you pick and choose what to build? Was there a playbook already at Carta when you joined?
There was already a playbook for deciding what to build, but it was based on the customers that we signed on, right? And the larger customers, they helped shape the product roadmap. They were the priority customers. So it was really based on what we were committing to and what the immediate problems were. And, we had a really good system for continuously talking to our customers and helping find their pain points and solving their pain points. And, when you get commitments from early customers, you really want to position them as being a design partner. It's like, listen, we don't have a lot of this build. We are building it, but because we're early stage, we can build very quickly. Like, we don't have technical debt like all these other companies in the space that have been around for 10 years. Like, we can build very quickly. We're very nimble. You're going to be a very important, that's what I used to tell them. Like, the incumbent, like, they are a huge company. They have thousands of customers. You're nothing to them. To us, we're a small startup. Like, you are very important to us. We're going to put the full weight of our engineering team behind you, and we're going to build for you. And in return, I want you to be, if you're happy with the experience you're getting, I want you to be a very good reference for me so that I can go out and tell other companies that you're using our platform. If they want to talk to you, I want to be able to connect them to you. And I want you to help sell the product for me because it's only going to help you. The more companies I get on the platform, the more successful we are, the more venture capital funding we're going to raise, the more of your problems we're going to solve. And so really you're forming a partnership, right, with these early adopters. Like
Right.
they're buying into your ability to execute not only for them, but by getting more customers on the platform, you're going to be more successful. You're going to be able to solve more of their problems, right? So you have to like sell them on that entire vision of the partnership. They have to trust you. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy
Right.
thing. You have to really build a solid relationship with them. And it takes time. In the early days, you're going to get a lot of people that are not going to want to take the risk of trying a brand new startup, but you're going to find the off ones that are going to be willing to do it. And they're going to be willing to put their job on the line to implement your software. And those customers are the ones that are going to be the catalyst that can take you to the next stage.
Sell the vision and sell the ability to execute the vision.
That's it. That's it. They have to have confidence in you. And you have to position yourself as a partnership. It's not the normal like vendor buyer relationship. It's a partnership.
And so you grew the org to almost 200 people, I think, by the time you left the sales org, right?
Yeah, the sales org, but I also was managing. So what ended up happening was I in the beginning I started as a first sales hire.
Right.
And then I brought in, I think within like my fifth or sixth month, I think I brought in like $100,000 in revenue in 1 month.
Mm.
And I was like, Henry, we can scale this. We can replicate. We need to hire people. And he's like, all right, go hire them. And so that, started with 8 hires and then 20. And then, the team got bigger and bigger. And as my sales org got bigger, at one point, Henry basically folded the non-sales org under me. And so I not only had sales, but I also had post-sales implementation, customer support, relationship management, business development. I had like most of the business functions under the company. And so that's how the org got to 200 people. It wasn't just sales, it was sales plus
Yes.
all the post-sales functions.
And so as you scale this, because very few people see it through the full cycle or the stage from being a handful people to hundreds, how did you keep the machine working and not breaking as you added people? What are some of the things you did for that?
Yeah, it's very difficult. There's no easy way to do it. And, I've never done it before. I think the most important thing for me is like you have to have the right managers and leaders, and because you can't manage 200 people directly, right? And so
Of
it's
course.
you have to build a team of managers and directors under you, and you have to have full confidence in them. And so I think like what we did in the early days was we didn't bring in external managers. We
Hmm.
promoted from within. I think that's very important. There's different mindsets on this, but some people think it's better to go hire from the outside. I'm a big believer of promoting from within because
Right.
you already know what you're going to get. You already know their performance. You already have trust in them. They have trust in you. You work well together already. You know exactly what you're going to get. And I think that's super important, that trust. When you bring in people from the outside, it takes time that you don't know if you're going to end up working well with them or not. No matter how qualified they are, it doesn't matter. The qualifications are less important. I think it's that ability to work cohesively together is so much more important. And I used to always, this is an analogy that I used a lot, and it's a sports analogy. Henry always had a lot of sports analogies, but the teams that win the championships in sports are not the teams that have the best individual players. Like you can get the New York Yankees and you can hire all the best players. They don't win every year, right? It's not
Right.
the best individual players that win the championship. It's the best teams. It's not, they may not have the best players on that team, but they work very well together. They trust each other. They know their positions. And so the way that you build the best team, in my opinion, is by, promoting from within. You know exactly what you're going to have. You know who you work well with. You promote the people that you work well with, the people that you trust, the people that trust you. And so they may not always be the most experienced, best individual contributors that you can find by going outside. Sure, I can find people that have managed large teams at Facebook and Google. Maybe they're
Right.
going to fit, maybe they're not. But you get a few of those people, and a 2 out of 3 don't work very well together, and they're not. And the other thing is they're not trusting each other. They're not trusting you. You're not trusting them. You have nothing. You're going to go nowhere. That's the worst type of team possible.
Right.
And so I think it's much better to, my opinion is, as you're building a big org, you start with the individual contributors, who are the people that are, going above and beyond, who understand the mission, and, they're missionaries, not mercenaries, and promote from within.
And so you mentioned that a few deals that you closed, quite a few of them were from C-level references. How do you ensure that references flow through from existing customers, and what are some of the things you can do to maximize references?
Yeah. So, customers, especially when you're negotiating contracts with higher value prospects, larger logos, bigger brand names, right? They are going to negotiate and try to beat you up on price, right? They're going to want a really good deal. And you need to work with them. You need the logos to be able to point to them and say, Cursor's working with me, right? Stripe is working with me. In order to get these logos, like especially in the early days when you don't have strong product market fit, they have to take a chance at working with you. And one of the best ways that you can incentivize them is by giving them a really good deal, giving them a steep discount, right? And they're going to ask for that. And cuz why should I work with you? You're going to need to be a lot cheaper than the alternative, cuz I'm going to get a lot less functionality. Like, you have to be a lot cheaper. And so in that process, like, fine. Like, listen, I will give you a really good deal on our software, but in return, I need you to help me. I need you to be a champion reference, not a regular reference where I'm just going to put your logo on my website. Again, of course, you need to be happy with the experience you're getting. If you're not, like, you tell me, we're not going to use you as a reference if you're not happy. But if you are happy, if we're taking care of you and you like the service that you're getting, I'm going to need you to, like, serve as a sales force for me. I'm going to need to connect you with not every prospect, but the key prospects that I'm selling into, your peers, other big, hot, fast growing companies that I'm trying to sign on. That, for example, for me, it was Slack. I was trying to sign Slack on. I'm like, the next Slack that I talk to, I'm going to want to introduce to you directly because they're your peer. And if you're happy with the services that you're getting from us, I want you to sell them on that. I want you to get them on board with using us, because that's going to help me get more of the better companies using the platform. It's going to help me raise more venture capital financing. And I'm going to dump millions of dollars into solving your problem. The only way I'm going to be able to do that is if we're successful. If I can't sign these other companies on, I'm not going to be able to dump millions of dollars into solving your problem. So, like, I will help you by giving you a really good deal, but you need to help me in return.
Right, right. One of the things that happens when you sweeten the deal for like that I have seen is sometimes as time passes, it becomes expensive to service that customer. Did you have to deal with that? And how do you kind of mitigate that?
Yeah, and that's okay. Like, there's going to be customers you're going to lose money on. And those customers, if they're the best logos that are going to help you win more bigger logos, that's
Right,
fine, right? You have to have a path to, like, creating profitability for sure. But, like, you can create profitability with they don't have to be the best logo. In the future, once
right.
you have product market fit, then yeah, you can start making every single deal profitable. But in the early days, it's not about profitability. It's about getting very strong references that you can point to, because people are not going to want, for one Slack that I signed up, I probably signed up 3,000 smaller startups because they saw that Slack was using us and they all wanted to use us, right? And so at the time, Slack was a very fast growing company. So everybody wanted to be like Slack. I think, like, even though we lost money on Slack, we made money on everybody else, right? And so I think that's a very important concept, is like, you don't want to squeeze, like, the most profit out of the customers that are going to give you so much more value than just their individual profit. Like, the value of these logos is getting the next 1,000, 2,000 companies to use the platform.
And so without giving away names, can you give a couple of examples of how you sweetened the deal? Like what are some of the examples, if any?
I mean, it was pricing. Like, in the early days, the largest companies that we sold on, at Carta, these companies are companies that should have paid us 30, 40, $50,000 a year. They were paying us $2,000 a year, $3,000 a year. They were like significantly discounted. And it was fine because like we weren't selling any contracts large at that point. Like, we knew it was going to take a lot to support these companies, but we didn't know for sure, but we knew that we believed that this was going to propel us to get the next 1,000 customers that were going to drive us to the point where we could eventually start charging $40,000-$50,000 per customer.
And so during the Carta journey, what's the one GTM mistake that taught you the biggest lesson? Or I guess, what's the biggest lesson out of the experience there?
Well, we tried both. We did a lot of like what I told you, we sold before we built.
Right.
Sell ahead of the curve is what Henry used to call it. And that worked. That worked. Sometimes we couldn't sell stuff, but then we didn't build it. And we were very efficient because of that. But we also tried the opposite approach with the Carta X product. We spent 2 years building it and we weren't able to sell it. And we tried and we tried and we tried. And we wasted 2 years. 2 years when I left. I think Henry spent another 2 years working on it after I left. And he never got it off the ground. And I don't know how much money they spent on it. Tens of millions, $100 million. I'm not sure how much money was spent, but it was a pretty large amount. And, I think there's this philosophy of like, build it and they will come. Didn't work for us. Personally, I'm not a fan of that strategy. Maybe it works for some people, but it didn't work for us.
And so Carta was completely a B2B play. And coming on to Dynasty, it's a B2C play after running a B2B sales org. Why did you switch? Because it seemed like you had a very successful run. And why B2C and not another B2B?
Really good question. I think the initial reason we decided to take the B2C path had nothing to do with B2B or B2C. 100% had to do with wanting to solve the biggest problem that we could think of. It was just about tackling the biggest problem that resonated with us. Me and my two co-founders, we were the first employees at Carta. I was the first sales hire. My co-founder, Kyle, he was the very first employee. He was the engineer that built Carta. Edison was the first product manager. And we were at Carta in the early days, and we were able to participate in, tender offer transactions. We were able to sell some of our stock. We made some money.
Right.
And we all are at the point now where we're married and have families. And so when we were talking about starting a company, we talked about like, I need to create a trust. Like I have children, money, we need to make sure our families are taken care of. None of us had a trust.
Right.
And so we just kept thinking about that. We're like, why don't we all want one, but we don't have one. And so I went through the process of trying to create one the old fashioned way with the lawyer. And they sent me this huge worksheet, fill in the blank template. And I'm like, this should not be this. And then the output after I created the trust, which took months and cost thousands of dollars, was a stack of paperwork. I'm like, where do I put this? And they're like, you just put it in your filing cabinet. I'm like, I don't have a filing cabinet. I'm like, what happens if I lose it? And they're like, no, don't lose it because that's your trust. If you lose it, you don't have a trust anymore. And I'm like, all right, this shouldn't be this way. Somebody needs to fix this. And so the more that we talked about this problem, the more that we felt it needed to be solved. And I was like, wait a second, this is a B2C company. I'm a little bit worried about that. And my co-founder was like, who cares? We'll figure it out. We're not chasing the easiest business to build. We're chasing the biggest problem. And so over time, after working on it, we didn't know where to start. How do we market this company? We tried Facebook ads. We couldn't figure that out. We're like, we're never going to do Facebook ads again. We tried Google search. And after a short period of time, we're like, we can't spend money on marketing. We don't have the ability to do that. We're building this company in a post-COVID environment, which is like a downturn for startup companies. We're not going to go out and raise $20 million like quickly. We need to be efficient. We need to be very efficient with our marketing. We need to build a network effect. We need to build a viral platform that sells itself. And so we started out by just focusing on building the best product possible, the best free product possible. And we didn't have a path into generating revenue. But as the business has evolved, we now have this business that's turning into a more of the traditional, sales org type business. Because, in any given month, we could get anywhere from, you know, 1,500 to 2,500 people signing up for a free trust with us. And anywhere from 10 to 15% of those individuals, have millions of dollars. And so those individuals now become a sales process. We have to upsell them into our premium product with a contract value of anywhere from, $1,000 a year to $10,000 a year, which is very similar to the Carta experience, right?
Right.
And the only difference is we have an addressable market of, call it 80 million homeowners in the US, 40 million business owners. Like it's such a bigger market compared
Right.
to what we were doing at Carta. We had a market of 60,000 startups, right? So like
Right.
now the numbers are much bigger and the contract values are similar. And so it's like, okay, well, we have much bigger potential now. And so, if we can make this work, and we're still working on it,
Right.
if we can make, and the value proposition for the $1,000 to $10,000 a year is we're offering the services that billionaires get. Billionaires, they don't just create trusts to help their family avoid probate court. They create trusts to protect assets from lawsuits, creditors, bankruptcy, divorce. They also create trusts to reduce taxes. These are the
Right.
services that we're offering, right? In order to qualify for those type of benefits, you can't create a regular trust. You need to create a Nevada trust or a South Dakota trust. And if you live in a state like California, you can't use a Nevada trust unless you have a Nevada trustee. That's our business. We become the trustee for you. We allow you to recognize Nevada benefits, but we also serve offshore individuals outside of the US. We have high net worth individuals located in Asia and they want to invest in US assets. They want to build a nest egg for their future children to be able to use in the United States. And so the only way that they can invest in assets in the US without being double taxed is they have to create trusts in the US and they need a trustee in the US. So we also get a lot of customers coming in for that. And so this market just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And, it starts to look a lot more like a traditional sales org where it's a little bit more complicated because if I get 2,000 people signing up a month, how do I can't just talk to everyone because 85%, 90% of those are not going to be a good fit for the premium product.
Right.
So there's a lot of filtering. We have to get really good at filtering because we can't waste time. We're a small company. Waste a salesperson's time talking to an unqualified prospect. And so
Right.
it's just a filtering exercise. And as we get better at filtering, I can build out my sales team.
So you landed from B2B, you landed on B2C, but you found the rich consumers.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just a matter of numbers. I think 15% of Americans have over $1 million in assets. And that number, you know, is consistent with the customers that sign up for us. 10 to 15% up in this higher net worth category. And an even smaller percentage of that will be 10 million plus. We get those as well. And so those are the people that we're selling to. We're selling premium services to people who have more assets. But we're also starting to offer premium services to people that don't have a lot of assets, but people who want to build multi-generational wealth. And so I think that is another huge product potential that we're now leaning into. It's people who don't have a lot of assets, but they have children and they want to create a trust fund for their children. And the best way to manufacture wealth if you don't have wealth is to buy life insurance. And that's what they do. They buy life insurance, they create a dynasty trust with us, and they can tap into multi-generational wealth. And so when they pass away, the life insurance proceeds go into the trust. The trust doesn't just pay out, let's say it's $1 million life insurance policy. It won't just pay out to their children. The trust is set up in a very specific way that will, when the life insurance proceeds pay out after the grantor passes away, the proceeds are used to buy more life insurance on the existing beneficiaries. And then the existing beneficiaries can take loans against that life insurance policy that they now have. And then when they
Interesting.
pass away, then the life insurance proceeds will pay back the loan and buy more life insurance. And so it manufactures multi-generational wealth. And it makes sure that your children can't just use the money for frivolous expenses like vacations and automobiles. It restricts what they can use those loans for. They can only use it for housing, healthcare, education, productive purposes, investing in assets, starting businesses. These trusts can exist for 365 years. So they help you manufacture multi-generational wealth. They help you control long after you die. And so I think that's a very appealing product for people that don't have any money because no matter what they do, it's going to make it so their children and their grandchildren and the children below them are going to have this foundation that they can pull from that will make sure they have a decent life.
It's an interesting route. And so, how expensive is it to do this today without Dynasty? And can you highlight a little bit of differences between the free and the premium? What's the cost differential?
Yeah, these a dynasty trust, the trust that I just described to you, I would say on average is going to cost somebody like $15,000 to $25,000 just to create. On top of that, you need a corporate trustee in Nevada or South Dakota or Wyoming, whichever state you do it in. That corporate trustee on average is going to cost you $5,000 a year. So you're going to spend, $20,000 to create the trust, $5,000 a year for the corporate trustee. So we make it simple. Instead of paying $20,000 to create the trust, you can create it for free. We'll create it for free for you. And then the corporate trustee, instead of 5,000 per year, we'll do it for 500 per year. So we're significantly cheaper.
The investment advice you were getting from people either who are interested in investing in you or your investors was don't go B2B, is what I had read. Why did they have such a strong conviction? And why did you think B2C is harder, but there's unlimited upside?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I got advice from both sides. The whole B2B and B2C thing. Most investors I talked to, they didn't want to invest in a B2C company, because B2C is much harder. There's much more risk.
Right.
And so they wanted us to find a B2B path. And I explored B2B and I'm like, that's what all of our competitors are doing. Nobody's going B2C. Like, no, I think, and also one of my mentors, I talked to him. He was one of the executives at Silicon Valley Bank. He's now an executive at JP Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to him and I'm like, should we go B2B to B2B2C? And he was like, if you want to build the biggest company possible, you need to be selling directly to the end user, the consumer. He's like, because if you start going B2B, you're going to build for B2B, you're going to end up with a terrible consumer product. You're not going to, you're going to be building for the banks, not the
Yeah.
users. He's like, if you want to build the best, if you want to build a household name, the biggest potential company possible, you need to be building directly for the end user and selling directly to the end user. And so that I took that advice and I was like, that's right. Just because it's harder doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing it. And so that was the path that we decided to go down.
And so, what were you most underprepared when you switched from B2B to B2C? What did you think was radically different?
But in B2B, I could go and get all my customers through LinkedIn and through email outreach, very, very, very tailored emails. B2C, that, neither of those strategies work. And so I quickly learned that viral social media was the way, and not LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Viral social media on Instagram and TikTok is how modern day B2C companies are built. And so we had to learn how to do that. I had to create my TikTok account. I had to start getting in front of the camera, and this is what the rich people do. You should do it too, right? And it's a muscle that is not easy to build, but once you learn how the algorithm works, once you figure it out, you can have exponential scale,
Hmm.
because you can create one video that gets millions of views and you don't have to pay anything.
Yeah.
It's like a television commercial. It's like a commercial for, the trick is you can't just go sell your product. because nobody wants to be advertised to. And so you need to offer education. You need to get people interested in what you're talking about. And that has to lead them to be curious about what you're offering. And then they have to go to your profile and they have to look at it. So, it's not an easy thing to figure out, but if you can it's like the most valuable thing to figure out. If you're a B2C company, like spend the time learning TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. The short form videos are the best. You can create email lists, you can do newsletters, but if you really want to go big, you need to create viral short form videos. And we can reach tens of millions of people without spending $1 on advertising that way.
And so what was your first piece of content that went viral?
For me personally, it was probably like you start to learn that the polarizing topics tend to perform better. And so I started, I learned that quickly because, I had one video where I'm like, this is what Elon Musk does. This is what Donald Trump does. And then people are just, people are like, oh, he's a criminal, or people are like, oh, he's great. But those comments help it go viral. So it's polarizing content. On LinkedIn, which I'm not doing a lot of LinkedIn, but
Right.
on LinkedIn, I had one post where it's my highest performing post where I say, the richest people pay no taxes. And it's just like, it triggered so many people, right? And they were like, you shouldn't be talking about that. I'm like, people, that's the truth. Whether you agree with it or not, doesn't matter.
Right.
This is how they do it, right?
Yeah,
And so triggering content is what goes viral.
And so in your marketing, are you already also doing paid marketing, and what's the ROI between paid and unpaid?
We don't do, the only paid marketing we do is Google search. Because what happens is when people will see a TikTok video,
Yeah.
and then they're going to go to Google and try to find us. And if we're not in Google search, organically, we're not going to come up. The name Dynasty, people know about us as Dynasty. Like you're going to find a television show. You're not going to find us. There's a very popular television show called Dynasty.
I remember back in the day.
Yeah. So we're not going to compete with that for a long time. And so we have to search terms to help people find us. And so it's required. But other than that, we don't want to do any paid marketing or advertising.
You mentioned that the Facebook and Meta ads didn't work for you. Was that true? Like, and what did not work there?
I mean, we have no expertise in that area, so we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
So I think there maybe some companies can make it work, especially nowadays. I think maybe there's a better way to do it. There's so much data that you can use, and I think the cost of producing ads now is like gone to zero now with ChatGPT. You can produce really high quality advertisement images, but that's not our skill set. And all the feedback that I got from investors was don't focus on paid ads, like figure out another way to do it. And so we tried it. We couldn't figure it out. And we immediately had more success in viral short form videos. So that's where we decided to lean into. Because, in the end of it, here's the thing. Video, okay, so trusts are a complicated product.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of missing pieces that people have regarding education. Like there's a lot of confusion. And people don't know, what does it do? How does it work? Do I need one? Can I benefit from one? And so that's a very difficult thing to solve through a Facebook ad. Video works really well for that because you can explain things very quickly. You can help illustrate the product. And so video performs well. And that's why our competition, they spend a lot of money on television commercials because they figured out the same exact thing. And so they spend their money on television commercials. We don't have the luxury of spending millions of dollars on television commercials.
Right.
And so we need to do it organically. And the alternative to television commercial is viral Instagram and TikTok videos.
And so you yourself are producing these things, being the sales guy in the team, or?
I do some, but we also, we started, this will go, I'm about to kind of counter position what I just told you, which is, now we're focused on partnerships. It's not necessarily B2B, but we partner with influencers. We get influencers to talk about us. So, we don't pay them money either. It's like an enterprise sale. It's almost like a B2B, right? But it's still, we get people to talk about us and create viral content for us. That works really well.
Right.
We've had a lot of success. It's not my videos do a little bit,
Right.
and we have other creators that help us create videos, but it's really the influencer partners, the large influencer partners that we are able to partner with and get them to talk about us on their channel that drives significant growth for us.
And so are these through an agency or you work directly with them?
It's like sales. I just outbound them. I tell them, hey, I have a really unique product. Your audience is going to love it. I'd love to talk about working with you. And they immediately are like, okay, you have to pay me $20,000 to talk about you. I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. Here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to help you produce viral content. Like your audience needs this. We will give you a coupon code so that your audience can create free trust with us. That's value. That's better than me paying you $20,000. It's going to help you create viral content.
Oh, that is a good one. Nice. Yeah, that's a huge saving and almost free marketing. Wow. Nice. Good one. And so you are building with a very small team. You've written as well, hiring is a failure of automation. I love that quote. What's the thesis? How small do you want to keep Dynasty, and what are some of the challenges you're facing right now?
Yeah, so we want to be, all these companies now, they talk about like scaling to millions of dollars of revenue with just a handful of employees. Like that's the business we're trying to build. In the age of AI, like this is a different time to build a company. And so, our thesis is that companies that don't leverage AI are going to be slower, bloated. They're going to need to hire a bunch of employees and they're not going to be the winners. The winners are going to be the most efficient companies. The companies that can scale from a handful of employees to tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And so that's what we're focused on building. And so the areas in which we can create enormous amounts of scale are customer support. We have this like free product, right?
Right.
And a lot of people use it and a lot of people have questions.
Right.
And instead of us trying to get on the phone and help them, we get them on the phone with the sales agent. And that sales agent is trained to educate them, qualify them, and transfer them to a live human if they are qualified. And so that creates the filter mechanism for us. And so that's one example of like, without AI, I was trying to field the phone calls, couldn't do it. There's no way. We would have to hire an army of people
Right.
to talk to and it's not that we don't want to talk to them. Of course we want to talk to them.
Yeah.
We want to help them. We want to help them get value from our product. And we want to find the premium prospects that have the ability to pay us thousands of dollars a year. But we're not going to be able to do that without AI. So that's an enormous example of giving us the ability to scale.
Any specific challenge when dealing with setting up a voice agent or a CSI support system?
I mean, with the voice agent is like the biggest challenge is getting customers to want to use it. You get people on the phone and they're like, representative. Like that's a challenge. We're still working through that. But that's the biggest challenge. It's like we have to sell the voice agent now. We have to be like, no, this voice agent is better than any human you're going to talk. They know more than our humans. It's trained on the entire internet. It's trained on thousands of trust documents. Lawyers have added context into it. Like we don't have the information. You got to talk to our agent. Like we're not the expert. The agent is the expert.
Right. And so I'm assuming this is a tiered support system where you have, for free tier, you have AI support and then maybe a dedicated support. Have you thought about support credits as an upsell to your free tier?
No, I think we did it a little bit where like, okay, if you pay us money, then we'll give you live support. But we haven't dug too deep into that. Because there's not maybe. I mean, there's a lot to figure out. maybe if we structured that a little bit better.
Right.
But in the end of the day, we want to be charging thousands of dollars a year to 10% of the users that sign up with us. We don't want to be charging $100 a year to like lower tier customers. We want them to be just free.
Yeah, self-serve as much as possible. Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. Time for some rapid fire. Should be simple enough. Biggest misconception about trust.
That the trusts are only for rich people. They're not. Everybody can benefit from a trust. Not only does it help you protect wealth, but it helps you create wealth if you set it up correctly.
Cold email or warm intro?
Cold email for me. I've always been much better at cold email.
One tip for someone who's new at cold email?
Short, simple, the less words. The trick is you need the less words, the least amount of words possible, and you need to stand out. You don't want it to look like it's a mass marketing email. You need it to look like it's a personal email. You need it to be informal. Like you didn't spend very much time in it. It needs to look like you just like fired it off from your cell phone. I find a lot of success when I just do a cold email directly from my phone and it says like sent from cell phone or whatever it says on the bottom, sent from my phone. It's just more organic. Like people respond better to like organic ideas, organic thoughts, organic outreach. It's the same thing with like TikTok. I can do a really good high processed video that is polished and nobody cares. And I can do a really raw video where I just get him and it's like, it's got the sun in the background. You can't even see, it does better. People like organic content does better. And that speaks the same to email.
Yeah, I like the hack of composing on the phone because it's also the real estate of the screen is small, so it kind of forces your mind to think smaller.
Yeah, and you're reading it. You're writing it the same way they're going to read it.
Yeah, makes sense. Harder job, first sales hire or first time founder?
Founder.
Why do you say that?
Because there's so much. It's not just sales. If it was just sales, I'm good at sales. I can do sales. It's fundraising. It's product. It's just so much harder.
Yeah,
There's no time to sell. I don't have enough time to sell.
I hear you. One SaaS founder you'd love to grab dinner with?
Betting out.
Last time a customer completely surprised you?
I got on the phone with I talk a lot about like qualifying, getting on the phone with the high quality prospects, right? I got on the phone with somebody who had no money,
Yeah.
no assets. And I'm like, yeah, it's not, you should just use a free product. He's like, no, I want the Dynasty Trust. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to cost you $1,000 a year. You don't want that. He's like, no, I do want it. And he's like, you don't understand. Like nobody in my family's ever done this before. And I want to make sure that my children have like multi-generational wealth. And that like reframed my thinking completely. And I'm like, it's not just for wealth protection. It's for wealth creation, right? That's how people view this product.
One belief you've changed your mind about recently?
I guess B2B. I guess going to, the influencer partnerships are more like a B2B thing. And so, I think that there is a path to a B2B2C play. I call that B2B because these influencers are like a business, right? But we're not selling to them. We're not charging them. I think that's the thing is the business model, right? You can go to a B2B distribution without going to a B2B2C business model. Like you need to make sure you get your money from the end user. They're your customers. They're who you're building for. If you can get a B2B distribution into the consumers, like if you can get other people selling for you, that's the best. I got to take back my hard stance on that. You want to build for the consumer, you want to sell to the consumer, but if you can get, you want the consumer paying you money, but if you can get a middle party distributing for you, of course it's the best.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, that was it. Where can people follow you? Where can people sign up for a Dynasty Trust?
Yeah, getdynasty.com. That's our website. You can call our voice agent. It's directly on the homepage. That's the best place to start. Call the voice agent and ask it. Learn about trust, right? Where can people find me? I do have my TikTok. You can just look me up, Alessandro Chesser on TikTok, or you can find me on LinkedIn. That tends to be much more common with the tech people. but Alessandro Chesser on LinkedIn.
Well, Alessandro, thanks for joining me. It was a fun chat and it was lovely having you.
Thanks for having me.
If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. See you in the next episode.